All right, this is Dan Meehan for Fight News Australia, and today we have one of the hottest prospects in Australian MMA, Cody Haddon, who's stepping in on short notice on June 5th to take on Eternal Flyweight champion Steve Erceg in a non-title bantamweight bout at Eternal MMA 60, if you can follow all that. Cody, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Feeling good. How's things? All good?
Yeah, good. Can't complain in lockdown, of course, but that's just the Victorian life. Thanks for stopping
Yeah,
by. So now
all good.
I've been doing my research, of course, and it looks like you might have started your MMA journey at a pretty young age. For those who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in martial arts?
Yeah, so I started off about 6 years old. I got into Taekwondo. I just always liked fighting and things like that. So went down to the Taekwondo gym, started training there, and then from there, I was always a fan of like the UFC. My dad used to be a big fan and watch it, so I'd always sit next to him and watch it as well. And then once I found like that I was quite good at Taekwondo, I wanted to see how far I could go with it, so I went into more so Muay Thai and boxing and things like that. And then when I hit about age 10, that's when I started fighting amateur boxing. At that point, things kind of got serious. From there, I had a big career in amateur boxing, and I had a few Muay Thai fights as well. But being so small for my age, I could never really get matched up in Muay Thai. So I'm also took the amateur boxing route because there was more opponents and things like that to fight. So yeah, started fighting amateur boxing when I was 10, and then started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu around the age of 10 as well at the same time. And then I just, yeah, kept fighting. Whenever there was a big boxing tournament, I would like dedicate all my time to amateur boxing. And then when a big jiu-jitsu tournament would come up, I would kind of step away from the amateur boxing and focus on that. And then, yeah, I guess I got to a certain age where the cage was legal again in Australia. In WA, sorry, the cage was came back, and then I was 19 at that time because I didn't want to fight in the ring, to me, it just didn't make sense fighting MMA in a ring. Like, you can't hold anyone against the fence, people fall through. It just doesn't, I don't know, it didn't seem good. Like, it just, to me, it wasn't it's obviously still mixed martial arts, but I'd rather be doing mixed martial arts in an actual cage. And then yeah, so the cage came back, and then that's when I transitioned over, and I wanted to do MMA. But I've always wanted to do MMA even since I was a little kid. I always did all the separate disciplines, so that one day I had that experience in those separate disciplines. Therefore, I can put it all together one day for MMA. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Here I am now, still fighting MMA.
So with all your experience that you had in boxing, and obviously, as you alluded to, the cage ban in Perth, was boxing ever a route that you sort of continued, like you considered going down, or was MMA always the dream?
Like, MMA was always the dream, but because I was competing, like, I would have had an MMA fight at 10 years old if I could have, right? But that was just not going to happen here in Perth, right? So, like, I had to kind of get lost in the amateur boxing. Like, I love boxing as well. And maybe when I started competing boxing, I started competing at a high level, going to the nationals every year and things like that. I was trying to win and get on, like, I would have loved to go to the worlds and things like that for amateur boxing. Which I definitely then, when I was pursuing that, and I would have loved to go to the Olympic Games for it, that I kind of then forgot about the MMA, because I had to be so committed in the amateur boxing because that was the only thing that I could at the time. Because at 15 years old, competing at a high level in boxing, you can't really be thinking about, your MMA and all this sort of stuff, because I wouldn't have been able to do MMA anyway till I was 18. So yeah, I was just, or 17 or whatever it is. There wasn't even a cage then, so it was not even it wasn't even really big. So yeah, I kind of, when I was doing amateur boxing, I really wish I did. Like, at the time, I was really trying to get to the Olympic Games and that was the sort of the dream, and go to the worlds and that. But I came short a few times. Like I fell short. Like close fights I had could have gone either way, but like that one close fight that could go either way can really like stop you in your tracks with like progressing further to like beyond Australia fights and things like that. So yeah, MMA was definitely always the goal, like always. And I think when I really thought that, look, I'm just going to do MMA, was I went over to California. I did the Nogi Worlds in 2017, and then I lost in the semifinals. And like when I got back, I was a blue belt at the time, and then when I got back, that's when I went to the first event. It was a Hex show here where they bring the cage back, and that's when, because I was a bit lost, you know, I was like, the amateur boxing was like, I would have had to have so many more fights and wait a whole nother year to do the nationals again and all this. And then I had a good crack at the worlds, you know, I fell short, and I was like, you know what, like, fuck it, I'm gonna jump in MMA. Like, why not start now? I'm 19. This is I've always wanted to do this, you know. So yeah, man, I started training the start of 2018 for my first MMA fight. And then I think in May I had my first one. So I was barely training, like, obviously I'd done boxing and jiu-jitsu, all the separate disciplines, but I was only training MMA about 5 or 4 months, like, of MMA training, before I went into my first MMA fight. So yeah, if that answers the question. Sorry, a bit of a
definitely.
tangent.
Oh, good. Now, I read recently that your parents let you drop out of school in year 9 to pursue martial arts. Is that true? And if so, how on earth did you get that one over the line?
Yeah, so it was like I completed year 9, and I was going into year 10, and the end of year 9, like, you could leave on an exemption if you were like starting an apprenticeship, like, of some sort. So yeah, pretty much I started the apprenticeship and never really finished it because I wanted, man, to be honest, I was happy to leave anyway, you know. And my dad had a steel fabrication company, and so I left school with the apprenticeship of, like, filled out the forms of going to start my apprenticeship with my dad. And it did go like that, you know, like I left, and I was starting like the apprenticeship and all that. And I remember in the factory or anything, like, my dad would never even let me use a grinder or anything like that to cut steel or to grind steel, because I might cut off my finger or some shit, then I wouldn't be able to fight. So it just became like, you know, it got to the point where I was like working, but then his business kind of started slowing down. He didn't have much work in that. So I just had more free time. So I would just train more, to be honest. So indirectly, yes, I definitely pretty much left school to pursue that was always the goal, man. Like, always the goal is like MMA was always the goal. But when I left school, then I just had more time to like focus on training, really. And then I used to just do a bit of work during the day, landscaping and things like that, just to get me enough money to live. And then any extra time, I'd just be training more. Like, if I had a day off, I wouldn't work every day. I might work like twice a week, 3 times a week. And on the other days, I'd just be training flat out, you know? So yeah, definitely did get pulled out of school to kind of work, but more so train.
There you go. That's the
But
dream, really.
that was my choice. Yeah, that was my choice too, man. Like, you know, I remember even being in school, like, you know, teachers were saying, yeah, but Cody, you need a backup plan too, you know, like, what are you going to do if fighting doesn't work? I was like, no, it's going to work out. Don't worry. Like, this isn't just random decided yesterday. That I'm like, I've been living my whole life. This will work out. Like, there's no fail. So yeah, I was just confident, and yeah, so what I've always wanted to do, man. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the ones that are sort of all in are the ones that typically succeed, aren't they? So it's one of those
Oh,
sports that you
you
can't
have
really
to,
have one
you
foot in,
know.
one foot out.
Nah, you have to, and you have to know what you want. Like, the quicker you know what you want, you can start going and getting after it. You know, if you spend your whole life not really knowing what you want to do, and then you hit like 30, and then you're like, oh, this is what I love doing, it might be too late to, you know, start then. So you got to find that shit early, and I reckon, and yeah, go for it 100%. And if it doesn't work, so be it. But, you know, at least give it your all. See how far you can get with it, you know?
Yep. And you made your pro debut just this past October and taking on a guy with 18 fights on his record, which is a pretty astounding statistic, really. What's probably more impressive about it was that it took you just a little over a minute to take him out. What did it mean for you to get that win?
It just felt right, you know, like I said before, I've been training, you know, my whole life for this, so I wasn't really surprised when I beat the guy. Like, no disrespect to Sean, he was like a game opponent in that, but I just feel like I'm in a different league than all these guys, you know. So yeah, I wasn't surprised at all to get him out of there in the first round, in the first however many seconds it was, I don't even know. But yeah, I wasn't surprised, but yeah, it was finally felt like everything that I had been working for, not only just for that fight, but for my whole life, had started to, like, it got the ball rolling, you know what I mean? I could finally start to see that everything that I'd been doing and training for my whole life, it's finally started to like take off, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
Like pay off.
Absolutely. So, and as mentioned off the top, you're stepping in on a couple of weeks' notice to take on Steve Erceg. Your last fight was back in February. So were you training for another fight when you got the call, or what had you been up to?
Yeah. So I wanted to get on this Eternal anyway. I knew the date. I knew the date that it was, and I was making sure that I would be ready because I was looking for an opponent anyway. So even though I'm taking the fight on short notice, the training hasn't been short notice. I've been preparing for a fight regardless. I prepare for all my opponents the same. Never one lesser than the other. You know, it doesn't matter who I'm fighting. I'll always prepare the same. Always train hard. Always push myself to the absolute limit, even when I don't have an opponent to train for to fight. I'm still in the gym training like I am in camp anyway. I just like going hard always. So yeah, I'm always ready. And yeah, I was ready. And when I got the chance and I got the call that I could fight Steve, it was the best thing ever, you know. That's what I want. I want the best fights. I want the hardest fights, the best opponents. Then if I beat them, then I become then that puts me up, you know. So yeah, that's what I'm here for, man. I want them hardest fights.
Yep, and Steve Erceg, as mentioned off the top, as well as the Eternal flyweight champion. So it's fair to say he really represents a pretty significant step up in class. How do you feel you guys match up?
I'm good, man. Like, you know, it's going to be a technical fight, I believe. Steve's great everywhere. I'm also great everywhere. Yeah, man, it's going to be an awesome fight. It's going to be a hard fight, my biggest challenge to date, which I'm ready for, I'm prepared for. And yeah, man, like, I just think it's going to be a cracker of a fight. And yeah, I can't wait to get in there, to be honest.
And what does Steve bring to the table that you feel is the biggest threat that you got to watch out for?
He's patient, and he's very quick with, like, I have to be I have to be 100% concentrated and obviously cautious in there, but I can't be too cautious, you know. I've seen how he beat Shannon Ross and how he beat Paul Loga and stuff like that. It's impressive stuff, you know. I know that he does have one punch knockout power, but I also feel like, you know, I've been boxing a long time, and I can tell you what, I've been hit with some big shots, and I haven't never gone down. So yeah, man, I'm gonna be I'm definitely, one of them's not gonna be enough to get rid of me.
Do you feel like the boxing might be your biggest advantage on the night?
I think so. I think so, to be honest. I think in the late exchanges, when the fight gets heated and it goes 3s and 4s and 5s, then there's going to be a gap.
Yeah. And this is your second main event in 3 professional fights. The other one was actually a co-main event from what I could see there. Does that feel like a vote of confidence in you from the Eternal brass, just throwing you straight into main event slots?
I feel like I deserve it. You know, if they weren't giving me the main event, I'd probably be surprised, because the truth is I am the main event. And I think every time that I'm on the card, I really should be up there as the main event, to be honest. And if I'm not, I'm a bit offended, because I think that I do bring to the table not many other fighters bring that. You know, not only does the amount of fans that I bring and people want to watch me fight, but my skill and the even though I've only had 2 pro fights, the level that I'm at for that many fights is a lot higher. So yeah, man, like I'm not surprised that I am the main event. I feel like I should be, no disrespect to Eternal or anything like that. But yeah, I want to be the main event. I'm all about the big fights.
All right, and I know you're probably not looking too far past Steve Erceg, but Eternal crowned a new bantamweight champion just a few weeks ago in Sean Etchell. Is assuming, of course, that you're successful in this next fight. Is that a fight that interests you down the track?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, I just want the biggest fights, man. And he's got the belt. I want the belt. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, man, he might even not have even thought of me or been looking at me as a contender yet. But, after I beat Steve, then I feel like I definitely deserve that shot.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, that was going to be my next question. How far off do you think you are? But is that? Do you think maybe that might be a call out after the fight if you're successful?
Yeah, man, definitely, right, definitely, yeah. You'll hear all about it.
Fantastic. All right, now you're 5-0 as an amateur, and 2-0 as a professional, so still undefeated in your career so far. It's clear from talking to you that your goal is probably to make it to the big leagues. I'd have thought, assuming
100%.
again that you're successful against Steve Erceg. How far off do you think a call up like that might be?
Man, to be honest, I think I beat Erceg, and then I get the bantamweight strap as well. Like fight for that, win that fight, and then man, like I'd be at what at that point 4-0 as a professional, but already have taken out the best guy in the flyweight division, the best guy in the bantamweight division. Like who would else would there be to fight? Why would I not be the valid candidate for the big leagues? You know what I mean? So that's the goal, man. Like I want to do it quick, and this game is, whilst you are good and whilst you're healthy, you must capitalize on it. So yeah, I want to be in there and get in the big leagues as quick as I can, get some of the biggest fights out now whilst I'm peaking, and yeah, I'm ready for the big leagues. I've always wanted to do it. So yeah, man, I think it's definitely after these 2 fights, these 2 wins, I'll definitely be over there in the big leagues, man.
There you go. No mucking around. That's good.
Nah.
All right, Cody. Before I let you go, do you have any sponsors or anyone you'd like to shout out? I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, so I'd just like to say a big thank you to my coaches, always, Luistro Combat Academy, Ramel Luistro, Tom, and my mate Ben. Thank you so much. All the work you guys put in. My manager, Jasmine, thank you so much at Addict Sports, and my sponsors. Just say a big thank you to, I got a few of them, Hemp Can Labs, Pro Fuel Meals, Gobsmacked Mouth Guards, Vex. Oh man, off the top of my head, I've got so many. I'm trying to think of them all. Yeah, and yeah, that's about it. I can't think of any more right now off the top of my head. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Brilliant. All right, Cody. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, and all the best at Eternal 60.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.